Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Jordan L. Sass. You might recognize me from the show Superman and Lois. You, my friends, are watching Completed It with Andy Burrows. It's your one-stop shop for everything pop culture related. Enjoy the show. I know I sure do.
Welcome everybody back to another episode of Completed It. I'm your host, Andy Burrows, and I am joined by now my full-time co-host, my good friend, Sacha Alari. Sach, how are you, brother? Welcome full-time now.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. You were just like, I was like, yeah, sure, why not?
I think I must have had a bang on the head or so. But no, it's
So
great to
this,
have you on, man. It's good to always talk movies and pop culture and everything. We have a guest joining us for your first show, Sach. From the Stu World Order podcast. Stu, how are you, my friend? Welcome to Completed It.
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys.
No problem, man. Thanks for jumping on. Stu, tell us about the Stu World Order. How does it come about? I mean, were you like us? And I do some, for those that don't know, I do some podcasting for the NFL and I do some soccer football over here. And everyone was like, "Hey, Andy, you love movies. Why don't you talk about it on a podcast?" How did it all start for you, my friend?
Back in 2018, actually 7 years ago this month, I had started a comic book podcast with a few other people, and that went for about 2.5, 3 years before we kind of fell off of doing that. And then my big first passion was writing. So when the podcast and the website that I previously was a part of fell off, I started my website swoproductions.com so that I could keep writing, doing movie reviews, doing wrestling reviews, doing humorous articles, watch throughs of TV shows for the first time. And I kept up with that for a while, and I kept having people from the podcast community say, Stu, you have to get back into podcasting. So in April of 2021, I started up the Stu World Order podcast, which is we review randomly drawn comic book movies. So I have this big list that I think currently there's still 70 some movies on it. I invite a guest on. I tell them to give me three numbers. They give me their three numbers. I tell them what they pulled from the list, and then they choose the movie that they want to watch and talk about. And then on the show, we give the movie we watch two ups, two downs, and then our overall rating out of 10 and how much we really liked it.
Wow, that's it's incredible. I mean, yeah, I've checked out your show over here in the UK. It's a really enjoyable show. I mean, Studio, what is it about? What's your favorite kind of movie genre? I mean, we can obviously like for those that have listened and they know that mine and Satch's history, we're well into like our DC and our Marvel. What is it? What's the favorite for you?
Probably my top two. The two I go back and forth between the most would be comic book based movies. Obviously, that's where the idea for the podcast came from, and horror. I'm a big horror fan.
Hmm.
So I've been watching horror movies since I was way too young to be watching horror movies because I had bad parents. I was watching the Friday 13th and the Halloweens whenever I was single digit years old, and just grew up loving those kind of movies. So I still watch a lot of horror, and of course I watch all the comic book movies that come down the pike too.
Stu, we mentioned on our last episode, we done me and Sacha and our guest Jonathan done an episode on Marvel. Where are you right now? Just before we get into break, we're going to break down our top five movies of all time today on this episode. But Stu, while we've got you and someone that's been doing this for a long, long time, where are you with what Marvel are doing right now?
Comics or movies? Because it's very different for me for
We'll
each.
go for movies right now
We'll
because I
go
think
for
the
movies.
comic game's really strong.
I'm still a big MCU apologist. I saw the recent Captain America movie, Captain America Brave New World. I quite liked it. I know a lot of people don't, and the reviews haven't been that strong, but I'm still a big MCU apologist. I think they're a lot more uneven now than they used to be. I mean, for several years, everything that came out, you expected a base level of quality, and now you occasionally get a Quantum Mania, which is pretty much the dregs of where they are. But I mean, I really liked Deadpool and Wolverine. I really liked Captain America. Probably their biggest problem is just oversaturating the market with Disney Plus and how many TV shows they have. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, if there are so many Marvel shows that I'm willing to skip some of them, like I didn't end up watching the last 2 seasons of What If. I didn't end up watching Secret Invasion because I heard so many bad things. But for me, for a big super fan who even still loves the MCU, to just be outright skipping things because I think like, well, this doesn't really matter and I'm not that into this. It ended up being my wife dragged me in to watch Agatha All Alone because how much she loved it. So I watched it and she watched it for a second time with me. But if it wasn't for her, I probably would have skipped that too. It just tells you there's way too much on the market right now if somebody like me is skipping this stuff.
Where did you think it went wrong is probably the wrong word. What do you think Marvel have done? We mentioned in last week's episode since post Endgame, and like you mentioned, everything leading up to Endgame was pretty much incredible. There was the odd drop in the ocean that wasn't great, but they were all solid 8 out of 10s in my opinion up until Endgame. Like you say, since Endgame, there's been countless TV shows, there's been countless movies where you look at it and you think, oh God, you've just made a movie for making a movie. Where do you think it kind of went wrong in your opinion?
I think probably the first show where I thought, did we need this? Did we need this at all? Was Moon Knight. I remember watching Moon Knight and not being impressed with it at all and just thinking like, well, this isn't going to go anywhere. I don't see this character coming back. It's like he's not going to be in an Avengers movie or something. I didn't think we needed that property. That felt for the first time like they were releasing stuff just to release it. And then with all of the Loki stuff and they had started building this multiverse plan, I remember going back to Quantumania, being very excited for Quantumania, but I watched it and I came away with this sensation of it's time to shit or get off the pot with this multiverse stuff. Like, either give us something where we're going to start getting towards Secret Wars or abandon this plan. And then, of course, everything happened with Majors and he got fired and they kind of went into flux for a little bit. And I'm not inherently down on the casting of Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. I don't know why they're doing it, but I think they've earned enough cash with me that I'm willing to see where they're going, why they're doing it, because there has to be a reason for it. But it does feel very much like they've seen the writing on the wall that their popularity is decreasing a bit, and bringing back RDJ was their break glass in case of emergency. So I want to see why they cast that, because I very much believe there's a reason they did it, but I also think the primary cause behind it is going to have been panic. So I'm a little worried about that.
Sorry, Satch, one more for me, then I'll let you come in, brother. Did it surprise you, Stu, that they brought RDJ back? Bearing in mind, like me and Satch mentioned on last week's show, we all know him as Iron Man. Was this a risk bringing him back now into the MCU, not as Iron Man? Or is it like you say, it's just they've panicked and they've gone, well, let's get a familiar face back that we all know and love. But yeah, we all know and love him because he's Iron Man. Now you've flipped 180. How do you think? Why do you think the predominant factor is of them doing it? And is it a risk doing it?
I don't know how much of a risk it is, because I think the movie going public really likes RDJ. So I think bringing him back is going to bring fans back, even if just for the perverse kind of, you have to look at a car crash and see why it's happening. You have to see why they're bringing back Robert Downey Jr. So I don't think there's much risk to it. I think the reward is much higher than the risk, but I do think it's a bit of a panic move on their end. Like, this is something I think they thought they might do years down the line, but now they're kind of being forced into it with the Jonathan Major stuff and their popularity decreasing a bit and their Rotten Tomatoes score slipping. So I think they're doing it much earlier than they would like to have done it.
No, agreed. Sorry, Satch, go on, mate.
Oh, I had nothing to add.
Oh,
there.
sorry, I thought you were going to say
no,
something.
I'm just agreeing with him. Like he's nailing all the points. Last week I was saying more or less similar kind of things. Really, I am intrigued with where they're going with RDJ. I don't think it will be a variant of Stark or whatnot. I know that's been floated around, but as long as he delivers a great performance, that's all I care about. It's and as long as they make him significantly look different to how he does as Tony Stark, that's another thing. Because one reason why you cast one actor is little kids get confused, right? So it's just,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like but also, I heard before he was up for this role when the Chris Evans Fan 4 was about. He was one of the people that were on the list, but I don't think he got it because of his problems at the time and whatnot. And he's a great performer outside of the Tony Stark role. He's the kind of performer where he, lives his performance. Like you look at Natural Born Killers and you look at Chaplin as well. Those are performance based. And with Doom, he has to do that. You know what I mean? Because let's face it, he was never on anyone's top 5 or even top 20 actors to play Doctor Doom. He was freaking Iron Man. So I'm it's a couple of months after the announcement. I've settled with it. I'm like, okay, well, they're doing it now. I'm not against it because I know some people are really rabid about it. And even I was like a bit, no. And then you go down the rabbit hole of like what everyone thinks they know is going to happen. But I'm just like, hey, just give me a good movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Impress me, and I hope he knocks it out the park. I hope he humble pies everyone, but we'll see what happens. I think the buzzword with this thing is that they've got the band back together with the Russos, and I don't know whether it's McFeely or the other writer that they got back. One of the writers from Endgame and the Captain America films is coming back, so that's a vote of confidence for me personally in the writing department. So we'll see what they do. Yeah.
Going to be interesting. Stu, how much pressure is on, just the last one on Marvel, how much pressure do you think is on this the movie coming out next year, the Doomsday movie? Because if they do get this wrong, this could be either very catastrophic for Marvel. If they get it right, and it could be a kind of quote unquote reset where we're all like, this is the Marvel that we know and love. Is it kind of shit or bust for Marvel with this movie?
I don't know if it's bust for the MCU as a whole, because I think the MCU will keep chugging along regardless. Kind of like Star Wars. I think Star Wars has hit a or bust point several times at this point, but Star Wars just keeps going because you're always going to have X number of eyes on it. You're always going to have so many people that are just dedicated to it that are going to watch it. Like, I can sit here and say I'm going to watch every MCU movie that comes out. I'm going to see it at least around opening weekend, if not the second weekend. I'm going to be there because I'm a fan. And like I said, if I have to skip TV shows, then I'll skip TV shows, and that's fine. But I think it could be a bust point for Kevin Feige if it fails, though. Like, I wonder if they might not be in a position where if Doomsday does fail, if it gets bad Rotten Tomato scores, if it doesn't break, I don't know what the breaking point but let's say it doesn't break like 1.5 billion in America. Let's let's put it that as the standard point, because you kind of expect it's going to make around at least that much. If it doesn't hit that point, I wonder if that might not be the writing on the wall for Feige himself, and they bring someone in to replace him and try to right the ship in time for Secret Wars.
Okay. Stu, just before we get into our top 5, just briefly get your opinion on the other side of the coin, the DC universe. We've spoke to, don't know if you've seen a few of our shows. We've had a couple of great guests on. We had the original baby Superman that lifted up the car from the original Superman movie on. We had him on. I mean, where are you with DC right now? It seems that they're kind of, the way the Marvel's kind of plateaued, DC really do seem to be on the up. And come July the 11th, we get a new Superman movie.
I know this is very controversial because DC movies have a very split fan base, and you've got one group of people who won't let go of something and another group of people who are very excited for what's to come. I'm in the latter. I have all the faith in the world in James Gunn. I loved the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. I loved the Suicide Squad. I haven't watched Creature Commandos just because, again, there's so much content, and I'm not much of a TV show watching person. I tend to watch movies a lot more than I watch TV shows, but I've heard really good things about Creature Commandos and what he did there. So I have all the faith in the world in him. I think he's going to hit it out of the park with Superman. I think it's going to be an amazing movie. I'm hoping it is anyway. Superman's one of my favorite characters. So I'm very excited. I was not a huge fan of the Snyderverse era of DC. I think it had peaks and valleys. There were parts of it that I liked, and then other parts where I thought that this is, not typically for me. But I'm very excited with where they're going right now. I like the way things are lined up, and I'm hoping that the people that are holding on to the Snyderverse and the Snyder fans who don't necessarily want to move on, I'm hoping that they give James Gunn's universe a fair shake. We'll see what happens.
Stu, do you think with comic book movies, with fans of comic book movies, they like what they like? Do you think when we see change, like the Snyder stuff that he put out with the Justice League, etc., 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 do you think that's always a risk with the comic book movies? Because you mentioned Star Wars there. People like what they like with Star Wars. They like what they like with Star Trek. They like what they like with the Avengers and Marvel. And once Endgame got here and they went off to do a million TV shows and God knows how many movies, is it something that is a big risk from whatever director does a superhero stroke comic book movie? How important is it that they stay true to what the fans know and like?
It's a very hard balance to strike because you're absolutely right. People like what they like and they get married to things. I always put it this way. I may have been in the extreme minority, but I really liked the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. I liked both of them. I even liked the terrible second one, which I admit is not a particularly well-made movie, but
You're probably the only
it.
person in the world who likes that movie.
I probably am. No, I did an episode of it for my podcast, and I remember my guest liking it too, and I was very excited that my guest also liked that movie. But yes, I liked it, and I admit that I'm in the minority, but also I recognize that those movies failed and they wanted to do a reboot and they wanted to move in a different direction. So I didn't go into the Tom Holland experiment thinking, well, I'm not going to like these because it's not what I wanted. It's not more amazing Spider-Man movies. I went in with an open mind, and Tom Holland has put out some great Spider-Man movies and I've really enjoyed them. So I think that's what it boils down to, is you have to appreciate movies as an overarching kind of just cinema. You have to appreciate cinema and not go in thinking, well, I'm not going to like something because it's not what I wanted. It's not this, it's not, you can write your own stories. You can write fan fiction if you're that married to somebody else's interpretation of it. You can write your own stories, but go into a movie, give it a fair shake. You may like it, you may not like it, but I mean, you just have to go in with open eyes and think like, all right, I'm going to honestly kind of review this movie and see what it did for me vis-a-vis what I didn't like about it so much. And that's all that you really need from people. Okay. But unfortunately, that's hard to get. That's hard to get because people do tend to think like, well, Star Wars is what Star Wars is in my head. And if Kathleen Kennedy does something different, then I don't like that. And I think that's what you have right now is a lot of people who aren't willing to give things both of their open eyes and open ears and say, all right, what does this do right? And what would I personally have changed? Because there's nothing wrong with watching something and saying, well, here's what I would have changed. But I don't like whenever people say, just write it off entirely because it's not what you had in your head.
Yeah, I mean, like Satch, we mention Star Wars all the time. There's only so many times you can tell a Luke Skywalker and a Princess Leia story, right? You have to evolve, otherwise you're just going to stand still.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, their stories were done,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, sure, I wasn't really a big fan of the sequel trilogy, but not because of it was mainly because of all the things everyone else has said. But it's more the disjointedness and the writing as they went on. I loved The Force Awakens, though. I adored that movie. I loved the setup. But then, Last Jedi, fair enough. It wasn't how I would have done it, but I waited for the third one to be completed before I was like, not for me,
Yeah.
But, for those that do like the sequel trilogy, I wish I was there with you guys because I want to have that joy, And it really comes down to don't yuck on someone's yum, So, may not be my cup of tea, quote. But,
yeah. No, I get it.
I'm glad like some people enjoy the IP.
Yeah, boys, we're going to get into our top 5 movies of all time in a second. Just one article I read today, actually, really interested to get your boys' opinion. Stu, the art of movie making. Do you think it's, and going to the movies? I read something today because of all the streaming platforms. I don't know how it is over in the States. I know I spend a lot of time over in the States. I've got a lot of friends over there, but over here in the UK, a movie will hit the cinema for like 3 weeks, and then it's on Netflix, it's on Disney Plus, it's on some sort of streaming network. Is the art and the fun of going to the movies? I try and go 2 or 3 times a week. I have a thing over here in the UK called the Limitless Pass. I pay 20 bucks a month, and I can go as many times as I like. I love it. I use it all the time. Stu, in your opinion, the art of and the fun of going to the movies, is that something that's slowly getting lost in your opinion? Because I read an article today that it said about a percentage of the people that will just be like, "Oh, I don't have to see that because it'll be on Disney Plus in 2 weeks or 3 weeks." But I'm like, I enjoy, I want to see things on the big screen. I want to see things in IMAX. I love that. But is it something in your opinion that's going out of movies that people aren't actually going to go to the theaters to see them?
I think you're always going to have people going to see the big tentpole movies. So like when the next Avengers comes out, people will see it. When Superman comes out, people will see it. When I don't know what else there is nowadays, though, I guess is the thing. Like I was going to say a Scorsese movie, but even his last few have been released on streaming, Killers of the
Hmm.
Flower Moon and The Irishman. So they weren't really big releases in theaters. I will say I also have the equivalent of that. I have the AMC A
Hmm.
plus, whatever it's called, where I can see 3 movies a week. And I usually go at least once a week. So I'm another one. I really like going to the movies. I'm always going to really like going to the movies. I know people complain about the price. Ticket prices are going up and the cost of concessions and everything is going up. I know people complain about those things. I mean, I have the A-list thing for AMC, so everything's a little cheaper for me and the movie
Yeah,
seats
mine's
themselves
20
are
pounds a
free.
month, but to go to one movie, if I wanted to take my wife, that's 20 pounds on its own. So I say to people, I'm like,
Yes.
I pay this a month. I can go as many times as I like,
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
that's right.
if
Yeah.
if people are willing to pay for things like Netflix and Amazon Prime and HBO Max and everything, I personally don't understand why you wouldn't also pay for one of these movie passes and see things all the time. But I get like I also only live 10 minutes away from a really good movie theater
Yeah,
that
same.
shows like it shows a bunch of movies. It has 22 screens. It shows all the big movies. It shows a bunch of like indie movies. It shows a lot of Bollywood and Tollywood and Chinese releases that don't get released other places. So I love my theater and it's really close to my house. I get that a lot of people don't live necessarily 10 minutes from a nice movie theater. So maybe they not only in addition to how much it costs to go see or to go get tickets and to go pay for concession, you're also paying for gas. So I I get it. I'm not going to sit here and say other people are wrong for not enjoying the experience, but it's something I'm always going to enjoy. So as
Mm.
long as my movie theater continues to exist and continue showing movies, that's all I can ask for.
No, I'm with you. Is that the only downside to say a Netflix? Because you get a Netflix producing their own movies now. And they're like, well, we're producing our own movies. It's going to be put on our platform. Is that the only downside, would you think, due to online streaming?
Probably, but even then, like I remember Glass Onion released in theaters for at least a little bit before it appeared on Netflix. I would hope that Netflix and what have you, Hulu and everybody else releasing their own movies, I would hope if they have something big, they would release it in theaters. And anything they anticipate getting Oscar buzz, they have to release
Mm.
in
Like the
theaters
last
at
Beverly
least for a
Hills
little
Cop.
bit.
Look at the last Beverly Hills Cop straight
Yeah.
to Netflix. I remember as a kid going to the cinema, to the movie theater to watch Beverly Hills Cop 1, 2, and 3. This one straight onto Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be nicer if they released some of those, even for just a limited run in theaters, would be really
I,
nice.
I
But
actually think Beverly Hills Cop would have made more in theater, like a lot of money in theaters, because one, when it came out, there was a good word, but it wasn't like amazing, but it scratched the itch because there was positive word around the people that did watch it. I personally loved it myself because I wasn't looking for anything that broke the envelope with that movie. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But you sign a deal with Netflix, and they clearly want it on their platform because they're a streaming giant. Um,
Look
you
at
know,
WWE. They're just on a 10-year deal
yeah.
with
So
Netflix.
I mean, that's just it with Beverly Hills Cop. I think if they were allowed to make the film they wanted to make it down at Paramount, then we would have got in the theaters. It really
Mm.
came down to the rating because the only reason why they never did a Beverly Hills Cop is because Paramount actually never wanted to do an R-rated version of it post Cop 3,
Mm.
basically. And Murphy hated Cop Cop Free, and he didn't want to go. He didn't want to water it down and make it as bad as the last one. And because Cop Free was
I didn't
a,
mind Beverly Hills Cop 3.
I liked it growing up.
I didn't mind it.
When you go back to it, it's not as good.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with movies, though. I was having a chat with my wife yesterday. She says that she doesn't want to
Yeah.
see. She doesn't like the fact that they keep rehashing things. It's like make new movies. It's like Beverly Hills Cop. There's talk of making Me and You, Satchel. We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago.
I have a counter
Goonies
argument.
2.
I have a counter argument for that, though. Like, as much as people say, why don't they make anything new? There are millions of new titles
Yeah,
released
true.
all the time, and all the streamers. Right now, it's Oscar season, so you're gonna get the cream of the crop of all the indies that have been out on, at Raindance, Sundance, film festivals all over around the world. So right now is the time to go watch original cinema. But they're not the kind of movies that, Joe Public or the mass audiences want to take a gamble on. And one or two of those titles will get word of mouth if they generally are beloved. Like I watched what's a Ralph Fiennes movie that came out?
Conclave.
Really
Conclave.
good movie.
Yes.
Really good movie. Really, really good movie. And you know what? I wasn't too sure. I was like, I like the trailer. I like the idea, a little bit of a murder mystery thing going on. But that was it. Like I was just like, yeah, the mindset of just watch it on streaming came in. But when I saw it, I was kind of blown away by it. I was like, this is a really good film. And I get, what, like they're filming the Vatican in really good cinematography. And when a DOP worth their salt knows to shoot shit, you watch that shit in the theater, not on your fucking TV. Just come on, man. Like I watched Avengers, Age of Ultron. I'll give you an example of this. In Harrow, where I'm from, just up the road is Wembley and Wembley Stadium, where they have all the events and stuff and all the big games and all of that stuff. It's a big stadium in London. And basically, just around the corner from it is my friend Sam's. I've got a friend called Sam who works in a Starbucks right inside the Civic Centre. So I went to go visit him. I sit down outside I get a coffee and I sit outside kind of thing. And when I say outside, not outside, like it's kind of like you go into the Civic Centre and Starbucks is on the left. You know what I mean? It's got an inside, inside the building. I sit outside the Starbucks. I'm still inside the Civic Centre. And I look at it, and I just think to myself, I swear this looks familiar. And then for some reason, someone posts Age of Ultron, the Hulk fight between Iron Man and Hulk in the Hulkbuster. And then it clicks. I'm like, I'm in fucking Wakanda. They shot it in the fucking Civic Centre. And you know what? It like, when they like something different and you know what I mean? You can really get away with making stuff look wonderful on film. You know what I mean? Even mundane shit that you probably walked past a million times,
I think that's the joys of movie making. But talking of movie making, let's get into our top 5 movies of all time, gents. Now, I don't think there's anyone on the planet who is going to agree with everyone's top 5. I spoke to some friends there. I said, I'm doing this show tonight. A few of my friends told me their top 5, and I'm like, that wouldn't even make my top 20. So it's polling. So Stu, let's start with you, my friend. What did you have as your 5th favorite movie of all time?
My 5th favorite movie of all time is probably my favorite straight up comedy of all time. And comedy is a tough one because comedy can really be a hit or miss property. And nowadays comedy is more of a subgenre that they tack onto other movies than release straight up comedies. But greatest comedy troupe of all time is Monty Python, and my number 5 movie of all time is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Absolutely love it. It's hilarious. It's so stupid that it's genius. Who thinks that we're just going to have people walk around clopping coconuts together and saying that's them riding a horse? It's just absolutely the most genius comedy that's ever been made. And I've watched it so many times and I just love it. I haven't ever seen it in theaters. I think last year or maybe this year they re-released it in theaters, but I haven't had a chance to see it. I should see it in theaters, but I used to have a copy that I taped off of television. Like it was on Comedy Central, so it was censored and what have you, but I had that copy complete with the commercials and I watched it so many times in high school. Just a phenomenal comedy. I love that movie.
Great choice, my friend. Great choice. That was in my honorary mentions. Satch, number 5, favorite movie of all time, my friend. What is it?
You know what? With these lists, I'm not going to name my top 5 or anything. I know you're going for number 5, but it is always hard.
It's kind of the format of the show. I'm trying to host a show.
I know. Sorry. It's so hard. So anyway, like whenever I've done this stuff, I have to get this off my chest. Star Wars is not in my top 5. It's like Sophie's Choice with the original trilogy for me. So I disowned them from that. Everyone knows I'm a Star Wars fan, but I do have 5 films that I would put.
Okay, well, give us one right now.
The hardest one was what the hell was number 5? Because I knew the first 3. You know what I mean? So number 5, I decided to go with Ghostbusters. All right. But
the original?
The original Ghostbusters, but the hard part was T2. It could have been Terminator 2.
I see my honorary mentions.
That's the hard one because
I can get Terminator in my top 5.
If you did a top 10, I would have put T2 there. But when it came down to it, I've seen.
If I did a top 10, that show would be like an hour and a half long.
Yeah, I've got. I mean, look.
People will be turning off YouTube.
It has to be Ghostbusters because I still got this whole thing.
See, I like it.
And then I got the damn proton pack right here. So, just
very nice.
Oh my God. Now that is a ghost. So number 5 for you is Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters.
Number 5 for me, and this was honestly I went backwards and forwards on this. Number 5 for me is Back to the Future. I just absolutely, I don't think you can talk movies without saying how influential that movie was on not only the genre at the time and it highlighted what was going on in the 80s and stuff like that. I think you can watch that movie at any time in history and that movie will still be good. There's some movies you look back now and you think, oh my God, why did I? Well, Satch, you mentioned earlier that some movies are made for kids and kids are watching it, but I think Back to the Future. Or I even like the third one. The third one got shit on a lot. I really enjoyed it. I think I don't know what you boys think. The Back to the Future trilogy is many people say to me,
it's a perfect trilogy.
The second one was better than the first. And there's not many in the franchise. There's not many where you can go, they released the original and then the second one was better than the first one. So for me, I'm going for Back to the Future. It's my 5th of all time. Stu, let's go into the top 4, my friend. What did you have at number 4?
Number 4 is the movie I've seen more than any other movie in the world. I talked earlier about really liking horror and really liking the slasher genre and how I've been watching it a lot longer than I should have in life. My number 4 movie is the original 1978 Halloween. I've seen that movie so many times in my life. It's, you watch Halloween at least once a year, or at least I do. I watch Halloween at least once a year, every year at Halloween time. It is if somebody says they don't like horror, if somebody says I've never seen a horror movie, Halloween is the movie you have to show them because it's John Carpenter, a master at his craft, at the absolute top of his game, just so atmospheric, and the music is a character in the movie, and it's so well made. Michael Myers is intimidating and just a brilliant character. So for me, I just watch it so many times. It's got to make my top 5. It's Halloween.
Oh,
and
great.
Killer soundtrack by Carpenter himself.
Great soundtrack,
yes.
by the way.
I'll let you into something. Growing up, I was never big into horror movies. It wasn't that I wasn't
until about 3 years ago.
I saw Freddy Krueger as a child, shat my pants. Didn't go back until I was in my teens when my friends started going to theaters all the time, and there'd be a horror movie every week. Scream would be out one week, so and then I started working in the movie theater, so I ended up watching all the latest stuff anyway. But all the classic 80s horror, I kind of haven't seen unless like someone suggests it or whatnot. But for all the most famous ones, I kind of hold back on them because a few years ago, I was like, right, it's time. Halloween's coming. I'm gonna pick a franchise
Watch
and
them all.
watch them all. And obviously, Halloween, the new films were coming out and stuff. I think the second film was coming out, of the Halloween Kills was coming out. So I was like, all right. So I asked my friend Neil, who's on Creative Control podcast, who's a massive Halloween fan, massive John Carpenter fan. I turned around to him, I said, okay, so Halloween. Shall I go to the original? What explain? He's told me about different variations, how Rob Zombie did the remake and stuff. I was like, I think I saw that one. Like, turned out I saw the second one, not the first one. So I did every Halloween movie ever in lead up for Halloween Kills, including the Rob Zombie ones and everything.
Wow.
And you know what?
My friend
You know
Chris is
what?
a massive horror fan.
I get it. I get the hype of Michael
Yeah.
Myers, man. I do like it. So this year will be Freddy Krueger. Okay. This year will be Freddy Krueger.
Starting with the
'Cause I
Nightmare
did-
on Elm Street.
Because I did Jason last year, so Freddy Krueger is
You might
this
want to
year.
be around at the end of next month, Satch, just for the show. I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. Why?
You mentioned him there.
Oh, you getting Krueger?
Let's just be around to the end of next month. Stu, do you think they went a bit too far with the Halloween movies?
The Halloween franchise as a whole is, I don't even want to say it's incredibly up and down because it's mostly down. I love all the movies. I do. I love them because they hit that sweet spot for me, and so many of them are nostalgia, and so many of them are right up my alley. But boy, there's 13 Halloween movies, and probably 9 of them suck.
Yeah, a lot of people
But-
say that to me.
But in
Do
a
you-
good way, though. I mean, there's a
Yes.
charm. There's a
That's so
charm
bad
to
they're
that
yes.
kind of. There's a charm to that kind of horror because you know what? Yeah, it's like it doesn't matter how bad they are; they're bloody entertaining.
Some of them are
I
so
will say
bad
the
they're good.
difference
I get
for
it.
the difference for me though is like I genuinely think most of the Friday the 13th movies are good.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I think it's a very up and down franchise. There's a lot of bad Friday the 13th, but I think most of them are good. I think most of the Halloween movies are bad.
Yeah,
I still love them, but they're bad.
Yeah, they do. Sometimes when you've got a good thing, stop at like number 3. Don't make.
Yes.
Look at the Fast and Furious. I mean, if they don't in the next movie, if they don't land a car on the moon in that franchise, then I don't know where else they can go. Satch, 4th favorite movie of all time, my friend. What is it and why?
Kevin Smith's Clerks.
Clerks. Wow, what a shout.
Clerks is like the epitome of my 20s and early 30s. I worked in a movie theater for way too long, and I blame this movie for it. I blame Kevin.
Okay. Good
I-
choice.
I started that job as Randall, and I became Dante. And I'm not even joking. But you know what? Like Clerks 2 probably resonates to me more because it was me like 10 years later, still there. I was like, shit.
Yeah. Good choice, my friend.
But-
Good choice.
But no,
Good choice.
I unapologetically love that first movie of his. It's like, look, I even like all the sequels. Like, look, I'm a Kevin Smith fan. I think the only film of his that I didn't like was Yoga Hosers for obvious reasons. But outside of that, I generally like his humor. I like his stuff. It brings me back to a time when I was a teen or in my early 20s all the time. And love Clerks.
I knew you then as well. I knew that. And you were a teen. I remember them days, me and you at school together. I
Yeah.
remember them days. I don't know if I want to go back. My 4th of favorite movie of all time, and then this is another one. They've got a movie coming out this summer over here in the UK. Is Jurassic Park.
Ooh, good one.
We talk about
Yeah.
going back to being. I just remember I went to the movie theater to see Jurassic Park with my cousin.
Safari Cinema.
By Cinema and Harrow,
Safari
yeah,
Cinema,
you know
Harrow.
well. Me and Satchel, Stu, me and Satchel grew up together. I've known this guy since we were 4 or 5 years old. 4 or 5 years.
Oh,
old, yeah.
wow.
We've known each other a long, long time. I remember going to that movie theater with my cousin. I said, look, just go and watch Jurassic Park. She was a little older than me. And you know when the cow got lowered down
Yeah,
into
yeah,
the
yeah.
cage? She was a vegetarian. She got up and walked out.
Oh no.
Yep. She was like, I'm not watching this movie, Andy. You're going to have to watch the rest of it on your own. Being
Did you
like,
know they didn't actually kill a
Yeah.
cow?
I did try and tell her that. I'm like, they're not. This is a movie. She went, no, I'm a vegetarian. I'm not watching. But yeah, the Jurassic Park franchise. Again, this comes back to what we said earlier about Star Wars. The original Jurassic Park films, I absolutely love. But the first one for me will always be the best. I don't know what you guys thought about the recent ones that have just come out. And again, the new Jurassic Park movie. Scarlett Johansson comes out in what, June, July this year. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know what to make about that. They're basically going back to the island, the original island, it says in the trailer, and I'm kind of like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like
I
this.
wasn't interested due to the last two films, but you know what? When I heard Gareth Edwards is doing it, that piqued my
Mm,
interest a bit because I do generally enjoy his movies.
yeah, I mean,
Uh,
I enjoyed the animated season that they run on Netflix. I mean, I really enjoyed that. Stu, Jurassic Park fan?
No, I love the first one.
yeah,
Absolutely love the first one. It's a fantastic pick by you. It's a 4.5 star movie for me. I think it's phenomenal. The only other one I've seen was the last one that came out. I didn't
Oh,
watch
okay.
Lost World. I didn't watch Part 3. I didn't watch the
Stu,
first
you
two
missed
Jurassic Worlds.
absolutely nothing.
yeah, it's true.
They weren't good.
He's correct.
I could
I've seen-
review them for you now. They were crap. There you go. There you go. That's all you need to say about the kind of modern day Jurassic Park. Stu, top three now, my friend. What's your third
Yes.
favorite movie of all time and why?
Third favorite movie is the movie that really changed the way I looked at movies, because up until this point, I was in my early 20s. I always just thought movies were something you watched and they were just escapism. They were just something you watched and you enjoyed, and that's all it was. And then I watched 2003's Lost in Translation, starring Bill
Oh,
Murray.
fantastic.
Yeah, what a film.
It affected me on such a level where it's the first time I ever really noticed things like cinematography and the way it was shot and the background score that was going on and just the dynamic between these characters that affected me on such a deep level. It's the movie that really changed the way I watch movies, because now my eye for cinema now is just different than it was before I watched Lost in Translation.
I found myself doing that during the latest Captain America movie when we talked about the reshoots and stuff like that. Years ago, I'd never have looked for things like that.
Mhm.
Now doing like this kind of thing and being a movie. So when you completely say that you now watch movies differently to when you watched them when you were a kid, which we probably all do to some extent. But now we've got a greater knowledge of movies. We've got a greater knowledge of how movies were made. I 100% get that, Stu, and that is a great choice, by the way. That is an awesome choice. Satch, what about you, my friend? What is your, you're not really doing it in the top five, but give me your third kind of favorite movie of all time and why.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Okay.
One Flew Over
Okay.
the Cuckoo's Nest. One, Jack Nicholson is quite possibly one of the greatest movie stars of all time. Movie stars, not actor, but movie star. You don't get a movie star quite like Jack. And this is one of his greatest performances ever. I'm sorry. He is so good in this role. You know, I like the whole him versus the establishment. I love the whole performance in it. It's got everything in the movie. You'll laugh, you'll cry. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
uplifting in places. It hits all bars that you want a film to be. It is cinema. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like literally. And plus you get like Danny DeVito and Christopher Lloyd before they were famous as well. What's there not to like? So
No, great choice. No, great choice, my friend. My third favorite movie of all time, I think, is probably in a lot of people's lists around the world. It might not be in your guys' list, but a lot of people I spoke to today said it was in there. It was the first movie where was watching a movie and I didn't know where it was going to go. I was the first time I found myself as a young lad engrossed in a story where I'm thinking, I haven't got a clue where this movie's going, but I'm so engrossed in it, and that's the Shawshank Redemption. And I think that's in a lot of people. It's probably an easy answer, but I do till this day. Every time it's on, I'll watch it. I don't ever turn it off. I will watch it from the beginning to end. I just think it was the first time when it was a feel good movie without being meant to be a feel good movie when it started, when it set out to be in the whole like he's set up for a murder that he didn't commit. And I just think for me, and I'm furious by the way that apparently they're making the second one. I don't know what
They
you boys
are.
think.
This is news to me.
This is news to me as
Yeah, I
well.
was reading the other day that they're looking into making Shawshank Redemption 2. I mean,
Oh
just
God.
good to get your opinions on this, boys. Is there sometimes in movies where you think, Stu and Satch, do you think just leave it alone?
Yes.
Goonies 2's being made.
Yes.
And I'm
That one
like,
I knew about.
leave it. Stu, what do you think when you hear things like that? I mean, I only found out yesterday that they're talking about making Shawshank Redemption 2. It's going to be like
Shawshank
what,
2, is
yeah, it's
that?
like what they're up to now.
Oh,
It's,
I'm checking
yeah,
this out.
yeah. I was reading. I was reading it yesterday on. I can't remember what I was reading. A friend sent it to me. I'll try and send you the link. But Stu, what do you think when you see things like Goonies 2 being made, and Bridget Jones has just recently come out with another movie all these years later? Is there some movies that should just be left alone?
There probably are. This goes back into what I said earlier, where I'll see anything with an open mind because they may have the most brilliant idea in the world for Shawshank Redemption 2. I don't know. I have
I
no
don't know how they're
idea
gonna
what
do
it could.
it.
I have no idea what it could possibly be. But I mean, I'll watch it. But yeah, that's nothing in the world that I can imagine people were clamoring for that they needed a
No,
sequel to
I was
that.
kind of like that with the latest Coming to America. I didn't
Yeah.
like it. I thought just leave it. The original was good. I thought that I went and watched Mufasa a couple of weeks ago. I thought just leave it.
Yeah.
You're putting out a movie for the sake of the Lion King name. But yeah, that was yeah. Anyway, my third one. So let's go into our top two. No, Satch, did you do your third? Or you did, didn't you? Yeah. Let's go into our top two, boys. Satch, your second favorite movie of all time, my friend. What is it and why?
Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction. Great shout.
Yeah. Seriously,
Absolute.
when I first saw that, it blew my mind. I rewatched it about 5 times that same week, just trying to understand, like, huh? It was, it's the first time Western audiences had ever seen film told in that way. There have been films told in that way before, especially in France as well. It's kind of regular in France, but what he did there blew my freaking mind. Introduced me to Samuel motherfucking L. Jackson,
No
and
one. He's in my top.
and
When we
and
do our top five actors, I can tell
and
you now, he's in my top five.
you know what? That film has all my top actors. It's got Bruce. It's got Travolta. It's got Christopher Walken. It's got everybody, man. It's a good fucking time, man. And it's got
Yeah,
Tim Roth. Tim Roth just
bossing it.
being Tim Roth, man.
Yeah,
I fucking love
absolutely
it.
bossing it. Great choice,
Absolutely
my
love it.
friend. Great choice. Stu, second favorite movie of all time, my friend.
Second favorite movie, I have a recent movie. It actually just came out within the last 5 or 6 years. It's probably, I mean, for my money, it is, but it's in the running for the greatest animated movie of all time. And the best thing is, I went to see it begrudgingly. I did not want to see this movie when it came out. It is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Bravo,
Great
Just
sir.
shout. Great shout.
the animation in that movie is so gorgeous. It's brilliant how they made that movie look and all the different artistic styles they brought in, and then they doubled down and Across the Spider-Verse and made different scenes and different universes that all looked entirely separate from each other. Oh, it's so good, and I love the story of Miles Morales, and it's funny and it's heartfelt and it has great action sequences. I love it so much. It's something that lately I've really been having an itch to rewatch again. So I may be watching it in the near future again.
Oh, great. Honestly, that's a franchise as well that you can keep making them movies and you won't get bored of them. Some of them, I think, go on and on. You think, oh, you're making one movie too far here. With that and the Spider-Verse, I think the animated world of the MCU and DC doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion. And I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
Stu, me and Satcha spoke on one of our first episodes we did. Too. There's so many stories, if you wanted to, that you could tell with in a live action that you could take from the comic book world. I mean, you think of Venom in the Spider-Man comics; he's one of the baddest villains around, and the Venom movies that they've made for me, they've kind of turned him into. It's like he's doing stand up.
Yeah.
I don't get. And I'm like, it's Doomsday and Superman. I mean, they tried it. I get it in the Justice League movie, but again, for me, I'm thinking to myself, he should effectively in the comic books he killed Superman. I mean, there's so much that you could do. So yeah, absolutely, great shout. My second favorite movie of all time. You're going to tell I'm a big franchise guy here, and a trilogy is Indiana Jones. I absolutely, there isn't come a time come by where I will not watch an Indiana Jones movie until the most recent ones when they landed. What was the Crystal Skull where the spaceship? As soon as a spaceship turned up in Indiana Jones, I was like, that's when I'm kind of like, what the fuck are you guys doing? But the
They've gone too
origin,
far.
yeah, but I don't get why. Maybe it's modern cinema, and Satch, I know you're a big Harrison Ford guy and Indiana Jones. I mean, for me, the originals will always be up there. It's one of them. I think it transcended a generation. People of our era and watched it. I don't think Indiana Jones will ever not be on, and I won't watch it. I absolutely love it.
I'll be honest with you. Me and my brother watched that movie. By the way, I'm in the camp where I actually didn't mind that one.
Even when the spaceship turned up?
Yeah, because you know what? My brother said this as we walked out the theater. I was like, what do you think about the spaceship? He goes, well, do you believe in God? I was like, yeah, fair point.
Fair enough.
But that was back then. Do I believe in God now? I think there's something, but you know what I mean? And I'm not gonna undo other people's thoughts or whatever. But you know, at the time I wasn't that religious, you know what I mean, or even thinking that way, you know. So yeah. But you know, that was his answer, and I was like, oh, okay, you kind of got a point, you know. You kind of got a point. And you know, when you think about it, there could be aliens out there. We just ain't ever met them. And
there could be an actual multi. I get into with my friends at work all the time. When my friends,
I'm like,
there's a multiverse. Someone they look at me like, oh god, he's.
I just feel with indie. I just feel with indie, everyone's kind of kept it grounded with like, you know, they kept it grounded with like, Christian artifacts, and even
they're making another one as well. They're making another one. He's going to make one more. I'm telling you now, Harrison Ford's going to make one more Indiana Jones movie.
Oh, you think he's going to?
100%.
You think so?
The way they ended the last one, they're making another one. Anyway, boys, the moment we've all been waiting for. Stu, your number. You know, you're a man who's podcasted, who loves movies, who loves comic books. What is your number one movie of all time?
My number one movie of all time, I feel like it comes out of left field because it's not like a beloved classic movie or anything, but it's the most fun I ever had in a movie theater. And I talked about Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and I'm going to talk about this movie. I apparently am just way into you Brits and your comedic sense of humor, but my number one movie of all time is Hot Fuzz. I love Hot Fuzz. I think it's just hilarious. And I talked about how I thought Monty Python was so stupid, it's smart. This movie is just so smart. And the way they make references and lines of dialogues that end up paying off an hour and a half, 2 hours later in this movie, it's so cleverly written. And Nick Frost and Nick Frost and Simon Pegg are so good in it, and I 100% believe their dynamic and their relationship in that movie, and I love it. I saw that in theaters, and it had me in stitches the entire time.
Stu, if you like that movie, if you ever get to the UK, I'll take you on a night. I'll take you on a night out with me and my friends. You'll think you're in that movie. Yeah, great choice, my friend. Absolute great choice. Sacha, your number one movie of all time, my friend. What is it and why?
It's got to be Raiders.
Raiders of the Lost.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah.
Great choice.
Yeah.
Great choice. Any reason why? You want to elaborate, or
I really need to explain it?
No,
man.
you don't need to really.
It's a kick-ass movie. I mean, like, you know, I just think it's out of all of them, that's the best made. It's got a lot of firsts. Like the first time you're introduced to him, he's a badass. You know, they kind of watered down his character in the other ones, but you know what I mean. He's like James Bond. There, he's just so fucking cool. You know what I mean? And he's just, it's perfection. That film. Great. But you didn't say which one. You just said Indiana Jones.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people consider Last Crusade to be equal to Raiders.
Yeah, I do like Last Crusade because of Sean Connery and etc. etc. I mean, I love the story, but then I love the young Indiana Jones series that was, you know, we had it on BBC TV over here. I don't know if you've probably seen it back in the day.
I've heard of it. Yeah, I'm familiar with its existence.
If you ever get a chance to watch it, bro, I recommend it. I mean, I quite like the young Indiana Jones TV. And obviously, I know you do your TV. It's a great It's a great watch. Satch, what did you think of the TV series, Young Indiana
Yeah,
Jones? You like it?
I liked it for the time, but then
It was kind of the same
yeah.
era as Lois and Clark, that kind of era.
Yeah,
It
when
come
they
out
came out,
around.
yeah.
I think that was when they were first. Now you look at it and everything's being made into a TV show. That's from when you look at Marvel. That back then was kind of unheard of. You're like, hang on a minute, this is a movie, but you're making it into a TV. So yeah, I mean, my favorite movie of all time would be no surprise to anyone that knows me is I Believed a Man Could Fly. It's the original Superman movie.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Till this day, my friend, Christopher Reeve will always be Superman for me. He will always be, no matter what's been and gone and what's coming up. I absolutely, everyone knows me and you've seen who's watched since we've been doing this show. DC's my go-to. I will defend DC until the cows come home, and twice on Sundays for anyone that shits on DC. I absolutely love it. But for me, even now when I sit back and watch it and I think that movie just changed cinema, the music, back then as well. I know the effects are a little dated right now, but for me, just believing a man could fly, and it was just an incredible. And to see where the franchise is still going today, people still sit down. That's the one thing I love about movies. You can sit down with your. I've got kids now. I've got 2 girls, and you can sit down with your kids, your family, and you can say to them, "This is where it all started." You can do it with Star Wars. You can do it with the Marvel movies. Now you can go way back to Captain America, Winter Soldier, etc., etc., and go, "Hey, watch this. This is where it all started." So for me, cinema and movie loving will always be where it started for me in Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was that. But
there's so many good moments in that movie. I love that movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many honorary mentions. I mean, someone said to me today, the Rocky franchise. How can you not have the Rocky? I'm like,
that would have been in my top 10 for sure.
Yeah, it would have been. It was.
Been.
Yeah, but that's. I mean, it's like people can get in touch with us, and it is a subjective thing. But Stu, thanks so much, my man, for jumping on and doing the podcast with us. Like I say, we're new to doing this. I've been podcasting since 2020, but doing this about movies, and someone like yourself who's been doing it for such a long time, man. I really do appreciate you coming on our show, my man.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I had an absolute blast. So just anytime you ever want me to come back, more than happy to. I had a wonderful time with you too.
I appreciate that, man. Stu, tell our listeners and people that are going to hopefully view this on YouTube, but the numbers are creeping up slowly but surely. Where can they find you, Stu? What do you do? Where can they find you, and what you got coming up, brother?
So the podcast is the Stu World Order podcast. You can find that on pretty much any podcast player. The website, which I put so much work into, please visit the website. The website gets good numbers, but I put so much work into the website, is swoproductions.com, and pretty much any social media, whether it's Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram, I'm on there as SWO Productions.
Stu, keep up the good work, my brother. It's like I say, it's been great to have you on. I really enjoy what you do. So I've been checking out your content over the last couple of weeks since I come across you just on social media. So you proves your hard work is getting noticed and getting across, my friend. Like you say, you've been doing it a long time, but keep going, my man. I'm really enjoying what you do.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Satch, me and you will do this all again next week. I hope you enjoyed your first time as co-host.
Hey, it's your show, man. You give me the call, I'm there.
Top man. Yeah, if you want to check us out on social media at Completed It Pod, you can go and you can find us. All our links are there. You can find us on YouTube, Completed It Podcast. So you say we're going to do our weekly shows. We've got some great guests lined up coming over the next coming weeks and months. I think Stu, you'll appreciate this. I don't think I've ever sent more emails and DMs and Instagram messages and trying to hunt down celebrities and movie stars and movie directors, etc. Trust me, you can see my outbox, the amount of emails I send. I'm host of a show. Any chance you can come on? And but we've got some great stuff lined up. So yeah, like I say, if you want to check us out at Completed It Pod on X, formerly known as Twitter. But we'll be back next week. But big thanks to Stu. Go and check out his podcast. But we'll be back next week. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Till next time, stay safe.